Welcome to the Dynasty Daily Podcast. This is a Thursday trade day podcast here for you. Doing a little YouTube bit here for that's available to everyone, and you can get the rest of this podcast. About half of this podcast is going to be posted to YouTube as part of our daily content over at analytics@dynasty.com. Every Thursday we do a trade show, so this is the trade show for this Thursday for premium subscribers over at AOD. So you get about half of this here. If you want to check out the rest of it, go ahead over to AOD, analytics@dynasty.com. You can get a year-long subscription for 21% off using TDF in honor of the Tour de France for this week. So let's go ahead and run down some trades here for this week. Got a bunch of them. So Xavier Legette for a 2025 second. This one's interesting because the way I kind of view this deal is, okay, you get Xavier Legette in the mid part of the second round. What do you historically get in the mid part of the second round? Historically, it's not a first round wide receiver. Okay, so you might even not like the Xavier Legette profile, but you historically don't get a first round wide receiver in the second round. As a general rule, there's a couple of things you can follow that keep yourself building in the right direction in Dynasty. When you get a chance to take a first-round quarterback, particularly when drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft, in the second round of a rookie draft, you do it. The other one is when you get the chance to take a first-round wide receiver in the second round of a rookie draft, you do it. Okay, when those two things happen, you should be taking them. So you've got Xavier Legette somewhere in the mid-second, right? He's your first-round wide receiver. You don't then ship it off for another future second-round pick. So I would hold Xavier Legette in this deal. You're not going to get with that pick what you would, what you got with Legette this year. Most likely, that's not that common that you get second-rounders that fall into that mid-second. So I would keep the player. Again, if you want to try and chip later on to upgrade to get a first or something like that, I get that. But I don't think he's going to fall much below this, right? That's the other side of this angle is when you're doing a trade, right? What's the downside? Right? If you want to trade Xavier Legette for a second at some point in the next 6 months, you're probably going to be able to do it, right? So you're giving up all of that upside. I would hold the player and hope for a better upside outcome than this. Tyler Boyd for rookie pick 306. This isn't a barn burner of a deal, but it's one that I think highlights something strategically that I think a lot of people should be considering. Right? When you're trading picks for players, right? Don't fall in love with the player side of that. Okay, especially when you have a specific goal in mind. Okay, when you're trading for players, you should start strategically and work backwards to the player. Okay, so for example, if I have a hole in my roster, right, and I say I want to go out and trade for a wide receiver, the type of wide receiver that I want to trade for, if I'm just looking to fill a lineup spot, is a wide receiver that is productive currently, but is not that expensive. Okay, so that would kind of fit what Tyler Boyd's of that sort of sphere of fitting that description. But what I would not do is say I want to go out and just trade for Tyler Boyd. Okay, you should be shopping around this business. You should be shopping around the business of Amari Cooper, of Tyler Lockett, of Mike Evans, right, of Chris Godwin, right? You shouldn't just be falling in love with Tyler Boyd. And this trade kind of reeks of that. So I would take the pick and I would kind of work to redeploy that pick in a way that gives me someone with a better ceiling opportunity. I mean, right now Tyler Boyd's like maybe the third best wide receiver on his team, right? That's a tough lineup dependent thing, and then are you just putting him on your bench, right? You're better off to have some pick flexibility going forward. So that would be my thought there with 306. There's some rookie drafts going on in some leagues right now, and I think some of the most of our rookie drafts happen in May. Some of them happen at this time of year. So if you have them, right now is the time to kind of reconsider that that market. This one I found really interesting. 308 and 310 for a future second. And if you look and kind of think about what you're getting with those picks, right? You're getting largely, right? My general advice on those third round picks is how many injury running backs can we get, right? Get a different shot at some different guys. Ray Davis, maybe, right? He's a popular one this year. There's a lot of guys that are sort of in that range. When you look down at the at where the rankings are and that sort of stuff, like Ray Davis is a guy that was a big time selection there in that range. That's after Blake Corum usually. It's probably after Marshawn Lloyd and Jalen Wright. Kamani Vidal might be in that range. Tyrone Tracy, right? Braylon Allen, Bucky Irvin, like, you know, those type. Will Shipley, right? Isaac Grendo, like those types of guys, right? In that range, as you kind of work your way down. Your kind of goal for them is either to get spot starts or get a second. So you're getting a second right here. And the way I kind of view this is, if you're trading 2/3 for a future second, right, you get the upside of that pick being A, flexible, and B, it being early. Again, it's better when you're trading for a first and you get that opportunity to be early, but you know, the second also, the random chance that it's early is worth a little bit more than just your average second round pick. And so you kind of think about all those things, right? And you say, okay, what am I giving up? Maybe a couple of injury away shots, right? A couple of depth pieces, but I'm getting the future second, and I'm getting 2 open roster spots, right? You can go back into the market and get an injury away, a plug-in guy, right? You can go back into the market and add Eric Gray. You can go back into the market and add any number of injury away running backs that could potentially be you know, competing for a job, right? They could be competing for this year's Kyron Williams job, who last year did not seem like at this point that he was going to be even the number 2, right? It looked like that job was potentially in doubt. But you can go and kind of hit on some of these players and with those open roster spots while also pocketing a second, right? And again, this is one of the things that I've changed a little bit over time, where historically I would say let's really pick our favorite injury running backs. Now I see them as more fungible commodities, right? Still all good players and different types and that sort of thing, but what you're more looking to do is take advantage of the power of an injury away running back, which is spot starts, predictability. You're not necessarily trying to pick favorites. And again, if someone wants to pick favorites by trading you a future second, when you can just go back into the market and get a couple of replacement level guys, right? That's good business to be in. So again, you can go back into the market. You know, maybe a guy like Evan Hull's available, Dearness Johnson might be available. You know, depending on your depth of league, there could be guys like Jamal Williams or Alexander Madison could be available. Again, those are more shallower type recommendations. You know, try and take a shot on one of the other Jets guys, right? Maybe Israel Abanikanda is available or something like that, right? So just go back into the market and kind of reassess, right? That would sort of be my thought there on that, right? So definitely take the second here. And again, it opens up roster flexibility and you can pocket that second, right? So that's that one. Okay, next one up here, we have Jaylen Warren for 202. This is actually for Bo Nix. So I actually put out a Twitter poll before we started recording on this to try and get an idea of what the market was going to say. And I wanted to see 2 things, right? You always want to see what the market's going to say about the pure pick. Plus, we know, and one of the benefits of the AOD trade database is you can actually look and see what the player actually becomes with the pick, right? You can go in and view all these teams, which is one of the real values of our trade database. I think that sets us apart from others. When you look at this deal, it's on Twitter, when I poll it, 73% of people take Nix over Warren, 70% of people take the pick over Warren, right? So again, pretty similar. I think the way you would read that is, hey, it's good luck that Nix gets to 202, right? I think that's the reading of that. I actually went in and looked at this team and found a couple of interesting team build takeaways from this team. You can go in and search all these teams and go through and look at all the leagues. It's really valuable to do. This person traded Jaylen Warren. They have on their team right now Jaden Daniels, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, and Bo Nix. Now, it wouldn't generally be the way that I would advise, right? You want superstar quarterbacks, and you want high level, productive, historically productive guys that are on the well established trajectory, right? You want guys like Mahomes and like Allen, right? Obviously they're expensive, right? You can't always get them. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, you've tried and failed to go the route of that. Again, if you had this team, my thought would be consolidate. Can I send picks plus Jaden Daniels for one of those elite guys? Can I send picks plus Anthony Richardson for one of those elite guys, right? And make either Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels as your quarterback 2, and this build feels a lot better. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you weren't able to do this, and you kind of come back and say, well, I don't have quarterback figured out. What can I do? Well, the thing that this person has done is to just keep adding them, right? And say, I can't get a deal done now, but maybe I can get a deal done later. And this is a really good way to do it. Just keep adding depth, right? What did we say earlier? If a first-round quarterback gets to the second round of a rookie draft, you should probably take them, right? Like, that should be a general rule. You should be in that business. This is good process here. And this is good process. So you add Bo Nix into Anthony Richardson, into Jaden Daniels, into Bryce Young, into, there's a Hendon Hooker there. I wouldn't really value him too much. He's more of an injury away guy at this point. But now you've got 4 guys that are relatively young, right? Bryce Young is on a kind of a bust track, and we'll see with Daniels and Richardson where that falls out. But having 4 of those guys is much better than having 3 of those guys, right? Because the more, while they're uncertain assets, uncertain profiles, if you keep adding them up, the odds that you're going to get better, that you're going to land 1 or 2 of them, goes up pretty significantly, okay? So that would be kind of the way that I'd view this. And so that's a really good job of doing this. Also in this deal, again, Warren's an injury away guy. Right? Those guys are maybe he's a starter. I don't know. Like, there's a uncertainty there about kind of how that goes. You're turning what is a fungible asset, right, which is an injury away running back or some committee running back. There's a lot of them, into a first round quarterback where there's not a lot of them. Right? Again, scarcity is a big deal. Right? This is a great deal from that perspective. And I'm actually surprised that more people weren't on the Knicks or the pick side in this one. I think this is a smash, right? And I think, and I've been in situations as well where you have a team that you just can't get the premium right at, right? Chad Parsons and I have discussed this a lot with the team that we had in terms of tight end premium league, where we just could not fix the tight end position. And we said, fine, we're gonna fix it by drafting guys, right? So the only time in my Dynasty career that I've said the answer is to just draft guys, right? The answer is just take them, and see what happens. All right, this is a good example of that, right? So assuming that this person tried every other solution and it failed, this is a good example of just keep taking them, and then you can figure it out later on, right? Bo Nix is a perfect type of person for that. And again, this builds around a team that's could be competitive, right? This person has Derrick Henry, they have James Cook, the receiver position's pretty good, right? Puka Nacua, Chris Olave, right? Jackson Smith and Jigba, Brian Thomas, Zay Flowers, I think I mentioned Brandon Ayuk, but Laporta and Brock Bowers. Like, you're in good shape, right? So again, I would, if you have already tried to pivot the quarterback position and it failed, right, this is a good fallback option, right? But now you should spend the next all of your time trying to figure out a way to get an elite quarterback to anchor around, so that way you're not depending on Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson to be your 1 and 2, that you're depending on one of those guys and Bo Nix to be your 2 and 3, right? You want to make that transition. So be open to that. And again, this is the type of team you can pay future picks to do that, because you're anchored around a pretty good team. You just have to kind of make it right. All right, so that's the show here for today. Again, the rest of this show will be on the subscriber side over at analyticsdynasty.com. You can go ahead and use TDF, which is short for Tour de France, which we're in the middle of. 21% off. It's 21 stages there for any cycling fans out there. 21% off of that year-long subscription. with the use of TDF. So we'll put the link in the show notes here. Give us a follow, give us a like, and go ahead and subscribe over to Analytics Dynasty to get all of our daily Dynasty content.